After the Battle of the Chalice Sector, the human fleet was forced to hold position and await for reinforcement and recovery ships to arrive. Of course, they had to, as their flagship was absolutely covered with all sorts of alien ships still stuck out of its hull, not to mention the cargo bay looks like something exploded inside, because it did. While they waited for the recovery ships to be able to do all the heavy lifting, they patched up what they could, and while they waited some more, they feasted. As it turns out, the crocs, at least that's what the humans call them, make for a great entree. Sliced up, they taste strange to most, although those who come from certain areas of Earth where different types of reptilians are a staple came up with, as they put it, some very tasty dishes, I guarantee. As the crews enjoyed these spoils of war, a recording of the battle was sent to the crabs. They wanted to show what the crabs were going to receive if they didn't come to the bargaining table. The message sent with the video was pretty straightforward. Talk peace, or this will happen to you. As prideful as the crabs are, they're not completely moronic. Yet no one did expect a response from them. The gators on the planet did not contact the human fleet. The humans contacted them. They sent a message down to the colonies with a simple message. You should go home now. That was the only message they sent, and they sent it every single day. And more messages were sent to the croc homeworld, telling them to simply stay away. Attached was a video of the croc fighters getting their salads completely tossed, as they were completely outmaneuvered, outgunned, even though they weren't outnumbered, and in desperation crashing into the human ship, which didn't even stop it, at least not permanently. As the recovery ships arrived, everybody received a surprise. There was a message from the crocs from the nearby colony world. Everyone expected a threat, but instead, they received something else. It was a plea for aid. As it turns out, once the talking back and forth actually began, certain aspects were confirmed and other aspects were figured out. And as it turns out, the croc governments are run by different families and clans. This seemingly unwanted world was colonized as an escape from a certain clan that had decided that these personnel were not really worth keeping. As it turns out, a cousin of the clan or family leader, i.e. the godfather of the clan, had made it clear that this group was completely unwanted by all those that they left behind. And what actually got everyone's attention and actually made everyone stop eating as they heard this. They found out that if these crocs go back to their own home sectors, they would be made either into slaves or food, or even worse, both. After weighing the options, they decided to ask the humans for any type of mercy, as they knew humans did actually have an appetite, but they didn't actually go out and hunt them. No, they just had the spoils themselves. Perhaps the humans will, if they do eat them, at least kill them all quickly. With all this information coming in, there was a fairly long debate before they actually spoke directly with the crocs again. This is about the time they finished repairing the flagships, and when they did, they contacted the remaining crocs and decided to try peace again, at least try. They would meet on a destroyer called the Sovereign of Liberty, and they would discuss things. As the one destroyer broke away from the formation, everybody kept their guns pointed towards the planet, and they could see one single shuttle coming from the surface. Everybody was worried that the crocs would play the same trick twice, and if they did, they were ready to annihilate the entire planet. This, however, looked as though a shuttle was so poorly maintained that it was barely able to reach beyond the thermosphere before sparks and flashes started to come out, and these were not from explosives. This thing looked like shit. This time, when the shuttle came in, even though it wasn't the softest of landings, it did simply land in the bay quietly and open the doors, and the reptilians stepped forward to see that the bay was actually empty. They stood there waiting for a long time, and then they realized, oh, that's right, our predecessors did something stupid. They were told to follow the lights, and eventually were shown into a conference room, and once inside, without wasting any time, the Crocs began to beg for sanctuary, and this surprised the holy hell out of everybody. How can such an aggressive species be begging for help now? The Crocs actually got down on all fours and started to say how they will do anything, even if that means becoming a slave to the humans or a second class to the humans. It doesn't matter. They just want to live. They want to live. The humans didn't trust the Crocs, even with all their begging and pleading, especially after the failed prisoner exchange before. They mentioned this, and there was even more begging. There was even several of the Crocs saying that they would become nothing more than a harem for the captain or something like that. Then everyone calmed down for a moment, realizing that if they're going to push themselves this far, to the point where they would actually remove what little bit of clothing they had and lay down on the table and say, do it, which made everybody, human or not, very uncomfortable. Everyone finally sat down and looked for a potential solution. Eventually, there was a solution that was brought up, and it was simply brought up with a question: are you willing to stop being a Croc? This made the delegation confused, but they were told exactly what this meant. They found out how humans do a lot of genetic engineering, and it's pretty much commonplace. It's so common that they actually showed pictures of what they used to look like to the Crocs, and the Crocs were amazed. And then they simply asked, can we be human, or at least close to it? The human delegation was actually surprised at this outburst, but it was quickly revealed that if they were more human, then they wouldn't be treated so poorly. They wouldn't be a different species anymore. They would actually be human. They would be one of them, and they would be treated well, yes? Would they? Would they be treated well? Yes? They kept asking more and more and more, to the point where everybody kept telling them to please calm down. After a little hesitation, a little more conversation, a recess was given. It was given about 8 local days before the Crocs all could give their decision. They had to tell everybody that if they were going to do this, there was no going back. Trying to reverse the CRISPR program was very difficult to do. Going one way is easy. Trying to flip around and go backwards, that's not so much. Everybody wanted to be around to see the first ones placed in, although most everybody had to watch it on vid screens. The first ones that were going to be treated had to, of course, disrobe, clean themselves up as best as possible. Then they were placed in pods. Once inside, they were given injections via machines with all sorts of CRISPR materials. The pod then used frequency modulation to adjust their DNA even further and to make sure the chemicals could do what they're supposed to do. Along with that, this also allowed those inside to completely sleep through the process. When asked why, the humans simply said, so they don't scream for the next month. It would take 28 human days to complete the entire transformation, and that is when the first ones finally came out of their pods. Everyone was interested, especially since they worried, since over 90% of the surviving Crocs are all female. Usually, working around female biology can be touchy, as it can sometimes do some crazy things you're not expecting it to. What they were definitely not expecting was when this Croc first stepped out, the very first one, she opened her very wide eyes and looked around, and everybody thought the same thing. She's cute. She still had a green tinge to that almost scaly skin that she had. They still had the same number of digits. However, the claws themselves had actually retracted and they were more like fingers than talons now. Along with that, the little bit of a tail that they had was no longer there. They knew this was coming, but the one thing that the Crocs were not exactly happy about was the fact that they now have hair. They have hair out of their heads, although they lack eyebrows, eyelashes, or facial hair, or any other hairs. Just off the top of the head, doesn't even reach quite to the back of the skull yet. And even though this may be the only hair they have, it's gonna be a while until they're used to it. In fact, a few of them thought about cutting it off, but most everyone said, no, it suits you, it makes you look better. The new body shape is also something they need to get used to, but as they are complimented by all the humans around, the Crocs get more interested in the way they look and more confident, as they seem to find a way to naturally just bend their way with that same twisty look that all the models seem to do to emphasize certain curvature. This made all the crew think, I wonder. What actually surprised both different species was the fact that the Crocs were now very, very thin, especially around most of the body. It seemed as though most of the body fat either filled out certain parts or was completely burned up in the adjustment of the body. With this new form, a new video was sent out to the other species. It showed them coming out of the pods, introducing them as a new species, and had a simple message: you will not eat our new friends either. Not long after, the crabs actually agreed to the territorial lines that the humans had put out. They agreed to this either out of fear of what they would be forcibly made as a new type of humanoid, or out of respect for the human technology itself. It didn't matter. With this, that leaves only one last threat. The Crocs government, of course, threatens humanity with obliteration due to invading the Crocs territory and claiming humans have no right to adjust their property. Hearing this, the humans sent another message. When opened and translated, it said, seeing how the adjusted Crocs, that humans now call lizards, still enjoy the taste of blood, and the lizard females are also so attractive to human eyes, that you initial Crocs don't have to worry about any of your property. Because seeing how nice they look, I can assure you there's going to be plenty of eating going on over here. That message was actually sent without authorization, and Ensign Tent Peg would end up standing in front of a captain's mast 2 weeks later for sending it. During the trial, when asked for his defense, Tent Peg simply said, I'm pretty sure they'll get the joke, right? Simultaneously, the entire captain's mast said, I doubt it. Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on part 4 of Crunchy on the Outside, Squishy on the Inside. If you haven't seen part 1, feel free to go into the description below and you will find it there. Before I go, I need to send out some special thank yous to some of my supporters, and those will be Prozac and Pancakes, SS Demon, Grog Vaughn, Guardian Sage, Sir Douglas Scarborough, MTF Guard, Brian Kemp, and Erica Gem. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax, ejecting.